I lost $20,000 because of a failed academic comeback. It was in high school, I was applying to colleges, and I just needed one more point in the class to qualify for scholarships. So let's talk about what the academic comeback needs to be this time around. Since the end of the semester is approaching, I'm sure a lot of you guys are facing this monster too, feeling like you're down 28-3 and you need a miracle, or you're up 28-3 and you feel that grade slipping. Because minus my one high school blunder, of course costing $20,000, I do feel somewhat qualified to talk about this since I finished high school with a 4.2 GPA and I'm in my last year of college with a 4.0 still. So what have I done right that I can help you guys with? I'll give you my best cram study techniques at the end and what happened in high school to throw my academic comeback and scholarship chances. So to rewind back to high school, I was really good at classes that I could study for. These are the classes like math or science that have objectively correct answers. You can fill out the formula or you can find out what the chemical is and that is just going to be correct. Although the one class that I could never be good at was English. And of course, English being my main language, kind of sucks that I sucked at that class, but I didn't like this class because there was no objectively correct answer. It was based on the teacher's opinion. And I had a teacher that was very, very biased. And I want to be as respectful as possible in painting the context for this, but I am a straight white male, of course, and this teacher had a transgender daughter/son and was this kind of middle-aged woman with a pretty much bowl cut as a woman. So just do with that as you will. I'm not trying to lead you down one path or another. That's just the context around the situation. And about 90% of the men in her classes would receive worse grades than the females. And that could just be a testament to how the school was, formulated or how the grade was, or maybe we were just simply dumber. But in this class, it did seem a little bit nefarious that is how the grades shook up all of the time. Because it wasn't like that in other classes. It was just always this woman's English class. And me being a straight white male, I kind of got the short end of the stick. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you're a straight white male, you have plenty of privilege, it's about time you get discriminated against, which is a fair point, but I'm just gonna say discrimination sucks. Let's get rid of that shit. Throw that out the window. Again, maybe that's a privileged take, but I don't think that's a crazy take to say, let's get rid of discrimination. What the fuck? However, to continue with the story, this is an English class, so a lot of the things you're submitting are essays and papers. And there is, again, no objectively correct structure or thing you can do. You get a rubric with, sections that you should hit or write on or whatever, but it's not like math. There isn't just one correct answer. You can write an essay a million different ways and a million good ways, and it's completely different. You might write the best essay ever, but if you have someone reading it that doesn't appreciate your style or whatever, they could say it's horrible. So English is a very objective class, which is why I struggled a lot, mixed with a slight bias. But, whatever. The essays I can get around because I was a decent enough writer, so that wasn't even the main concern for this class. She did a couple absolutely outrageous things that knocked off enough points for me where I was not able to pass this class with an A. And like I said, throughout high school, I finished with a 4.2. That means there were AP classes, advanced placement classes that you could get graded on a 5.0 scale. Hence why I finished with a 4.2, even though I got a B in this woman's class. We're just gonna call her Jen for this story. That's why I got a B in Jen's class. But one of the things that absolutely pissed me off was her spelling and definition tests. And what she would do, she wouldn't give you a list that you needed to study for or what it might be. She'd assign a chapter or two to read for homework. So this is probably 30 to 60 pages of some novel that you have to read. And it wasn't some read and comprehension test, it was a spelling/definition test. So out of 60 pages, she would pick random words, just random words out of 60 pages. So there's probably about 4,000 words, ballpark in those pages that she just choose random ones. So there was no way to study for what she was gonna choose unless you studied 4,000 different words. And not to mention, these are almost every day. So you're not studying 4,000 words every night. So you'd come into class having absolutely no idea what words were gonna be on the test, and she'd tell you to spell it, and she'd tell you to define it, and she would give points accordingly. accordingly, which of course almost everyone failed these tests. So that was the first thing. You'd get docked a lot of points for that. So now I'm going into the final for this class with about, I think I have an 89 right now, and in the American grading system, a 90% is an A. And I was going in with an 89%, so just 1 point underneath. I go into this test, I actually do pretty decently, and I do just well enough to get like an 89.9, and most classes in my school would round. They would round your grade up to a 90 and call it good. But no, Jen doesn't do that. Jen, of course, doesn't do that. And I go through my grade book to see if there was anything I could possibly dispute to her or dispute to the principal or whatever it might be. And I go through and I see phone deduction. In my grade book, there was a phone deduction because I didn't put my phone in the phone jail on the wall. Not to mention, I'm a young high schooler and not everybody had a phone. So the fact she was deducting you based on if you had a phone and were putting it in the phone jail is absolutely outrageous. And the one day that I got docked for not putting my phone in the phone jail was a day where I was grounded and my parents had it, so I didn't even bring it to school, and I got docked for that. Remember, that is the reason that I got an 89.9 instead of a 90. So I finished with a B in this class because she would not round me. So a couple years later, I'm now applying to university. And the way this university gave out scholarships was on your unweighted GPA. So a weighted GPA means it includes the 5.0 scale from advanced classes, and an unweighted scale means it just takes your A, B, whatever. It doesn't do any sort of weighting, you're just stuck on that 4.0 scale. So I did graduate high school with a 4.2 weighted GPA using that 5.0 scale, but I only graduated with about a 3.98 or something on the unweighted scale. And this college only did scholarships based on the unweighted scale. So I still had a pretty good GPA, so I got about $15,000 off my tuition, which is amazing. I'm so grateful for that. But if I had that 4.0 unweighted, if Jen didn't give me that one fucking B, I would have gotten $5,000 more per year for scholarship tuition money. Again, for a 4-year college, that is 5,000 times 4, so $20,000 off of my tuition that I would have been getting if this motherfucking Jen didn't deduct me for a phone jail point. I'm still very livid about it, but life isn't fair. So do what you need to do to lock yourself in. Because now you know the absolute utter consequences that can occur because of one missed point. So put the extra effort in. Be the guy that controls your own destiny. Prepare yourself so you don't leave it up to someone else's on a whim decision. And sometimes it's unfair and it's not going to fall the right direction. You might get an insane spelling test over 4,000 words and you might be screwed because of it. And again, life isn't fair. That's just how it happens sometimes. But I do want to give you some tips to help you study or to help you achieve the absolute most insane academic comeback of all time. So here's the couple things that I've done to help me cram right before a test and get ready. Because I'm not going to give you some bullshit, unrelatable advice. I don't study until the day before. I study at the last minute, and somehow I've gotten through life by doing so let me give you those cram tips. For me, cramming the night before actually works really well. I think trying to study a couple days before, I just can't focus, I get brain mush, and I just start going on my phone or playing Fortnite or something like that. So I study the night before, and then I do really well. I probably get about 85% of the knowledge that I need to know for the test the night before. I'll then wake up somewhat early before school the next day, and then I'll complete that other 15% and then briefly go over the other 85% that I learned the night before. And when I say that I learned the night before, I'm being completely dead ass. I'm not saying refreshed from something that I learned in class, because I have a very hard time paying attention in class. So the night before, I am fully learning a lot of content for the first time. But the way I'm able to actually remember and get this into my brain is just coming up with ridiculous mnemonics. If you don't know what a mnemonic is, I could be wrong on what this actually is, but I believe a mnemonic is remembering a passage or some sort of information with a picture or a song or an acronym or just something like that. So you're not just straight brute force memorizing it. There's some little trick to memorizing it. So for example, say I'm learning about some war in class. Maybe I'm learning about a special unit. Say I'm learning about this specified infantryman unit. And that's kind of hard to remember. I mean, specified infantryman, it's just not really clicking in my brain. So I'll try to make something that's similar to it with just an outrageous mnemonic. mnemonic. So instead of remembering specified infantryman, I'll switch it to dedicated infantry combat killer. It's pretty close. Like if I see a multiple choice question or I need to write a free response, using that different mnemonic, I'll still be able to write it out. But the reason I change it from specified infantryman to dedicated infantry combat killer is because it's funny. It spells dick. Dedicated infantry combat killer. Dick. I can just see a question, I'll be like, oh, that's the dick question, and I'll just be able to write it out. Because that's so outrageous, it just implants itself into my brain in a way that specified infantryman couldn't. So I know that's a super random example. Hopefully that makes sense to you, and that's just how I remember stuff. I try to make a mnemonic that's so outrageous that I will be unable to forget it. So hopefully that helps you guys. I mean, I really enjoy making this style of video. It's more cinematic and I can tell a better story. So if you enjoy it too, please invest in the channel for this next chapter of my channel. And of course, if you still play Fortnite, use code reidtheninja or another small creator's code to help out this growing community. My name is reidtheninja, and on that note, I'm signing off.